Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hyrule Chronicles. My name is Articulate T, and this is episode number 76 of our Legend of Zelda campaign. And with me, as always, I have Renji Vox being played by another lad.
Level 10!
I have Hikan Sio being played by Avrdal.
Hello.
I have Zayden Shari being played by Robopart. And we have Max being played by Keistrith.
Oh, lightning is so close. Chain lightning, I mean.
So
So
close.
close.
So
right
close.
there.
So close to unlimited power. All right.
I've been staring at it since I got here.
So what happened last time, folks?
Last time, it was episode 75 of Hyrule Chronicles, and the Storm's Eye goes to explore the cathedral on a cursed island they find themselves on. Inside, statues holding large spears, all still intact, with one broken beneath one statue and one simply missing, and a statue of a woman sitting on a throne are there. The features of this woman are indistinct from the wear of ages or vandalism, or a combination thereof. Finding a puzzle with levers on the side wall, Renji figures it out quickly with the help of notes found earlier. The statue of the woman slides back to reveal a tunnel, and the party goes to investigate. Below, they find themselves accosted by an incredibly creepy creature with quite the hands-on approach, but they manage to vanquish it without too much trouble. Behind the lair of this creature, they find a large tomb in a state of disrepair. The walls of this tomb display a painting of the forces of light, commanded by the goddess Hylia and her hero, fighting the forces of darkness, commanded by a large apparition the party had seen before in a vision, accompanied by a red-haired woman stepping out of a jet black sword.
Yes. Indeedy do. And with that, we find ourselves returning, however briefly, to this scene before. Having freshly witnessed the mural, which has a depiction of this past scene, possibly ancient scene, with the revelation that potentially whatever it was that was being held here in this now broken sarcophagus has since escaped. What do you do?
I think Renji has some sense of morbid curiosity, and he would like to inspect the insides of this sarcophagus.
Okay. Roll for me an investigation.
Very good at those.
I also believe Max was heading back to
That's-
go get Mara.
Yes. And that's a 17 on the investigation.
Okay. So while you begin investigating, Max, you head back to go and find Mara. Let's see. Okay, so as you inspect the insides, you find that it is filled with this thick layer of dust. One that ultimately has, either been there because it has been open for quite a long time, or that was just what it was filled with when it was sealed. More than likely the first one. From a cursory investigation, you don't seem to find anything else within this sarcophagus, with the exception of some rubble and dirt that might have been there when the thing had broken open, though not as much as you might expect. Yeah.
I would walk to the others. I don't think there's much here beyond the painting itself. Do you think there would be time for me to try and copy it? Which is what I asked to the rest of the party.
I don't see why not.
I mean, I think copying it might be a good idea, but I don't really want to stay here any longer than I have to.
If you want to copy it and you don't want to stay here, get copying.
Fair. And I pick out a fresh few sheets of paper. And how sturdy is the top of the sarcophagus? Because it looks kind of flat on top.
Yeah, it is flat, and it is still a thick stone, so you are capable of using it as a surface in order to copy things down.
Then I would get to around here, just look at the opposite wall, here.
Okay.
And I will try and copy it to the best of my ability.
Okay.
And pay particular attention to the figures that are depicted the most center of it. Hylia and this hero and probably the Sovereign Hand and its red-haired companion.
Okay.
If you need me to roll anything, let me know.
No, unless you're rushing it, you should be able to copy it down fairly easily. So yeah, Max, you make your way back through the tunnels, and eventually you find yourself at the entrance. Thankfully, the statue has not closed on the entrance again. And you see Mara, who's kind of hasn't really moved from her spot in the middle of the church or the cathedral area where the entrance to this catacomb has been kept. Seems to just kind of looking around rather warily. When she sees you come up, she kind of looks at you, smiles a bit, then realizes that you're by yourself, and that smile fades away, wondering whether or not anything terrible has happened to your companions.
Max can't read that because he's bad at people. So he said, dealt with this thing down there. Found something. And what?
Where's everyone else?
Oh, they're downstairs. They're fine.
Oh, thank the gods. Okay.
There's something that we're trying to make sense of, but it's you're smarter, so
okay. Sure.
I can take over up here if you want.
Okay.
Just stick to the right in the tunnels.
Stick to the right. Okay. I'll go. You don't need much of a insight to see the immense amount of hesitation.
I was actually just about to ask, are you alright? It sounds weird coming from Max, but
Yeah. I don't know. I guess this kind of area has been freaking me out all since we got here, really. But I'll be fine. I mean, if everyone's okay, then I should be okay. She more or less kind of leaves it at that as she as she wanders down into the catacombs.
And Max will take over upstairs.
Okay, I'll switch your positions then. There we go.
Or Mara, because like if Renji's gonna take his time copying the things down, Hikan's attention span's going to wane, and he's going to wander the other levels that they didn't explore. So when Mara gets there, there's still one person missing.
Oh dear. Yeah. Mara eventually finds her way down and sees that Hikan is missing and is like, hey, where's Hikan?
Went over that way.
Oh. Okay. So, you wanted me to, have a look at what's down here?
Yeah. Also, like, wait, where's Hikan? And if no one reacts, I just shrug and go back to my copying. But then kind of wave my hand around, just like to Mara, like, probably a painting here of historical significance.
Right. And she kind of like looks at the painting for a long moment, or the mural for a long moment.
That's the word.
She kind of like she's quiet for a long time. And she says, but after a moment, she says, I can't think of anything that might have been. No, I mean, I know who those two are. And she points to the one side of the mural where you can see Hylia and the hero. He says, that much is obvious. It's
I figured as much.
the I don't know about the other ones. I mean, I only know so much about that one. He points to the demonic berobed creature. Says, I only know about that one because from what you've told me and everyone else that you needed to tell about him. But I don't know his name. I don't know his historical significance. But then again, as Lord Simeon would have attested to, Hyrule is not exactly the greatest when it comes to recording its own history.
And I kind of feel weird calling that thing the Sovereign Hand. I've kind of been doing it in my head, but I'm not sure if it really is as appropriate as I think.
The other figure I don't know.
There is something that, like, Renji is thinking of when she mentions that And he just looks kind of with a scowl at the mural.
Hmm.
And then just looks at the pages.
Going to
I don't know if I did this last time, but out of curiosity, does the woman in the image, the red-headed woman, does she look Gerudo by chance?
Make for me. Ooh, what check would this be? Make for me a perception check.
Alright.
As you pick out the details.
14.
Hey.
You think not. At least from the general depiction of this person, a lot of artistic renditions of Gerudo women have been very specific about the fact that they are very tall and are usually quite lean and muscular as far as most things. It's basically the artistic interpretation of a warrior culture has been the pervading sort of artistic interpretations found throughout history when Gerudo are around. The figure in the even ignoring the fact that the figure lacks any kind of jewelry or ornamentation that is found with the Gerudo. Like usually most Gerudo have a gem that rests on their forehead. Most Gerudo are depicted with larger noses, broader shoulders, that sort of thing. This figure in particular seemed like, despite the fact that as far as the painting is concerned, she's standing at equally proportionate height to the goddess Hylia and the hero and everything like that. The way that the figure has been designed, it seems that they would be a lot smaller, more demure. They seem kind of like they have something of a stance akin to is it the Aphrodite, the painting of that woman standing in the clam or the oyster? I can't remember what that is.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's Aphrodite or Venus, I'm not entirely certain.
They're the same person.
They're
I'll leave it at that.
But yeah, so there is that kind of stance to them. So you don't think Gerudo when you look at that person, so to speak.
And Renji has his own associations with red-haired women.
I wasn't going to ask, because I think that's too specific for an artistic thing and would be very coincidental, but that is fair.
But yeah.
The rendition on paper will be as faithful as Renji can muster.
Okay.
Lost someone. We lost someone.
Have we?
Harbor pirates just dropped on the
Yeah.
call.
Oh
Just like
no.
sitting in that stand.
Oh.
He's offline.
His
Yeah.
internet has died.
Oh dear.
That's unfortunate.
Siding just starts suddenly T-posing.
Oh no.
Clipping with a wall.
Running into the wall.
Like it just comes up with that bit of text, like player has dropped out, NPC computer has taken over control of Zayden Shari, and it's like his pathing is all buggered up and using the wrong abilities, immediately using all of his healing items on himself.
And then using all of the wild shapes in like first round, one animal, second round, second animal.
Yeah.
Get the
Okay.
dumb AI.
We'll carry on for a bit, and hopefully he should be back. And if he isn't, then I'm sure he'll let us know.
Catch him up.
Yeah. Okay. So while you're musing over that, Mara kind of like her eyes fall on the open sarcophagus, and she's again quiet for a fair amount of time. Then after a moment she says, "So judging by context clues,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing whatever was in that is long gone."
As far as I can tell, yeah, there's quite a layer of dust inside.
Okay.
Which reminds me, those spheres, those orbs, upstairs. Do you think we could take them to Castletown? I think it would be a good idea to have Uriel take a look at them.
I mean, from what I can tell, they were there as a magical power source, right? I could tell they were some kind of magic. But
As far as I can tell, it was some shape or form of barrier magic or technology.
if they were to power a barrier, chances are they were there to make sure that this, whatever it was, stayed in that. And if he's not here anymore, then there's really nothing stopping. And they're really not, whatever power they have left, they're not stopping anything. So,
yeah.
I guess by at least arcano-mechanical purposes, we might as well, if we can carry them. I don't know how heavy they are.
We have several bags of holding.
Does it look like one could fit into the big pocket of the haversack?
They're
Should Max be willing to?
They are 5-foot diameter spheres of like a pure
Oh.
crystal. They are 1-to-1
Oh.
scale on the map big.
I see.
We might, if we get some hands on the boat, be able to like get them on a cart or something, or like a tray or
That's
whatever,
a thing.
and just carry them normally.
Yeah, just roll them across. That might not work.
'Cause it's also, what, like a 10-foot drop for them?
Yeah.
10, 15 feet?
Which is why I'm suggesting getting some extra hands.
Yeah. I don't have anything, like, regarding levitation.
What? You don't have Tensor's floating disc?
No. We could ask Sidon to turn into, I don't know, a mammoth or something? Like a big thing? An elk? Maybe. Elk might be a little... I don't know.
Whilst I could turn into something large, we'd need at least some form of worrying. Sling it over.
Also, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
You saw nothing.
Exactly,
Given
so
I'm
we're
not entirely
glad
certain
to
why
see
that happened,
you.
it might happen to you.
We know we saw nothing. That's the problem. Oh, dear. Okay, so let's see. as you're kind of discussing this, Mara says, well, unless there's anything else that we need down here, if you've finished your drawing, would it be best to discuss this plan out of this cave, maybe?
I'm thinking that Mara is nervous or anxious about specifically being in this cave.
Yeah, she does not like it here. She hasn't as I said, it doesn't. Well, you all have pretty decent insight, but even then, you don't really need it to tell that Mara has not liked it since she got here. Like, the whole place has been unsettling.
I asked if she was sure before she got off the boat.
Oh yeah, and she said she was all right, but what she says does not necessarily translate to what actually is the case.
Yeah. I nod and start packing up the pages, collating them into like a small notebook before putting them in my bag of holding.
Okay.
Yes, let's get out and see what we can do.
Okay. If that's the case, you vacate the cave. As everybody makes their way out, and reconvenes at the top, Mara moves back over to the levers and just like seeing the ones which have been flipped, just unflips them, and the statue moves back over the entranceway. Convenience. And you are now back, more or less topside on the sealed isle. Yes.
How long would it take us if we went straight to the ship to get back to the ship? Thereabouts.
It would take about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get all the way to the shore where you disembarked. I mean, ideally, the ship should still be anchored at this point. Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, could an earth elemental carry a couple of those orbs relatively comfortably?
I'd say so.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
We have someone that can turn into an earth elemental.
No.
For 5 hours. Technically speaking, if we rush, he can like make it grab all of them. But no.
If Hikan is suggesting this,
Hikan doesn't know magic. He couldn't suggest it in character if I wanted to.
How long would it take us to get to the ship? You said.
It'd take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get from the cathedral all the way to the shore, and then however much time it would take for you to then get back from the shore to the boat, which would require getting into a rowboat, pushing the rowboat into the water, and then maneuvering it close to the ship.
Well, even so, just getting them to the shore would be a lot more useful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can figure it out from there.
See, I had been thinking rather than earth elemental, water elemental, and just subsume them all inside.
That would work.
Possible.
Would this plan work then, OGM?
Yeah, I would say it works. Like, a water elemental is capable of manifesting enough water to carry all of them in such a fashion, and do so relatively safely. I mean, granted, they are still big solid objects that don't lend themselves well to buoyancy, but you can manage that. That's fine. Like I'm not going to get particular. I'm not going to get particular about physics at this point.
If anything, I'm just rolling them along the floor, but all at once.
Yeah.
So, slide it. Are they still up on top of these orbs?
Yes.
Okay. Sliden, seeing this discussion of how we're going to transfer them back, just sort of walk over to the nearest one. Is there one in blue?
Oh, I have to go back to the. I have to go back to the thing now.
I think it was the ones that are gone are the green and the black ones.
Let's see. Undying Cage. Get back there. Yeah, so there is a yellow and orange, a blue and a grey silvery one.
Zayden will head over to the blue one.
Mhm.
He'll reach up towards it, and unlike the normal transformations, his body will start to shift and bubble and melt, and turn first into just a simple puddle of water, before surging up into the full, grand size of water elemental.
Nice.
And then he'll grab the orb.
Okay.
Max is wearing an expression that's distinctly, the fuck did I just watch?
And he'll go grab the other orbs as well, and just start rolling them along.
Yeah.
Within the water elemental mass.
That's quite impressive.
Hikan.exe has stopped operating.
Oh dear. But yes, you managed.
Turns to me like, oh, I've always been able to do this, didn't you know?
I don't speak Aquan.
But yeah, you collect all of the orbs and begin to carry them back to the shore over the course of a couple of hours. You manage to get to the shore in enough time, like well enough time to probably remain within your water elemental form for another hour or so. And when you do get to the shore, you do see the Sly Guppy, roughly 50 to 100 feet away from the shore, having still remained anchored and the sails raised, though it is turned and poised, ready to leave.
If I was
Is
taking just one at a time, would I be able to actually carry them out to the ship?
Yes, you would.
Is it possible for you to also bring like one of us along, just so the crew doesn't get antsy about seeing a giant crystal ball descending on them?
Maybe
Thought
like
I-
drag the
thought-
boat along or something.
I thought
Oh,
the car
so-
could run on water.
So, yeah, I can, which is going to be my suggestion. We put the orbs in there and put Renji, Max, and Mara on the boat. So the boat's going to be packed. The water elemental guides the boat to the ship, and Hikan runs to the ship.
Okay. Sounds good. You
Floating away.
you proceed as planned. The rowboat is guided along, laden with this newfound treasure. I suppose. While Hikan, you speed along ahead of it, managing to reach the Sly Guppy in good time, and setting foot aboard. You see Bainswood, Captain Bainswood, look over and be like, "Oh, well, you're back. That was sudden. Give me a moment." And he looks to the side of the boat where you came up from, and just like, "Ah, good. Yes, the rest of you. Well, you seem to be one short, my good sir."
No, he's there. He's like there, and he just kind of points to the shadows underneath the water.
And
Oh,
we'll just slowly bubble up the side of the ship
I see. Well,
and wave at him when I'm up there.
kind of like there's that kind of awkward pause where he just kind of looks at you and then slowly raises a hand to wave. And it's like, I don't think I'll ever get used to this.
No, you probably won't.
So, I suppose then that your expedition has been successful?
Well, to be honest, we weren't quite sure what successful would entail. We've certainly found something.
Good. I suppose there's nothing else that ties you here, correct? There's nothing that keeps you in this particular area, as it were.
I don't believe I've noticed anything physically or spiritually doing so. And
As
I look
in,
over
like-
the others to see, like, if there is any reason for us to stay.
Vastus just is like, let's just go.
Alright,
Good.
Captain?
It's been a rather restless night while you were away, but nevertheless, we must.
You've experienced it as well.
Well, yes, actually. Half of us haven't really had a proper night's sleep, so do forgive us if we're a bit. He kind of like waves a hand in like a non-committal gesture, they haven't exactly rested well. I mean, it is difficult in most cases to rest upon a boat, even one that is moored to still waters, but this place has an air about it that doesn't lend itself well to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, and he walks over to a nearby bell that is attached to a wall of the ship near like the first deck cabin and rings it. Ding 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 ding. All hands to stations! All hands to stations! We are making way back to Hyrule! And there is like a sudden kind of flurry of activity as everyone makes ready to leave. Bruno kind of appears on deck, followed immediately by Rodo, and once again, while Bruno does his best to try and motivate people into getting stuff done, it's Rodo who's doing most of the legwork. And it is with that prompting that everybody is subsequently encouraged to make way. And so they do. After a few moments of unfurling the sails, raising the anchor, and slowly guiding the ship between the opening that was so handily made by Hikan on the way in, you find yourself on the other side of the fog. Thankfully, at this time, the spirits within the fog have decided not to harry you again, possibly because instead of trying to get into the area, you're leaving, and that's what they would probably prefer. But yes. And so it is that you begin your journey back along to Hyrule. Astrid, through the dedicated use of compass and map, has determined that you don't need to then go back to Ixan Isle in order to find your way back to Sarkoza. Judging by where you currently are and how far you travel from Ixan, she can map a straight course in that direction. And so
Alright.
she will.
And I will attempt to assist.
Okay. Excellent.
Astrid, when there's some downtime, Hikan will approach Renji and ask him, do you still have those journal pages from the Company of D?
Yeah, actually, there were a few things that I wasn't really. There weren't any specific mentions there were some specific mentions that I don't think we really noticed. And I pull out this particular page, which says that there's a clue beyond the grand oceans to the west, beyond the great skies above, beyond the sacred earth below, and beyond the flaming peaks to the east. No man may travel too far to seek that which prevents death. I don't think we've particularly found what that is referring to.
No, but Astrid was looking for information for him, and I have this. I pull out Daniel's rapier hilt. And so I was like, since if she's got a moment, we could give it to him.
That sounds like the best idea, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, I give Astrid the company of the what's a good word for these? My brain's like heirlooms. It's like that's not exactly the right word, but
Memorabilia might also not be it.
Yeah.
Mementos.
That might be better.
That fits a little better, I think, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you so after setting a course and everything, let's say we get to about here. So several hours later, as the day begins to wind down, and you find a nice calm bit of ocean that you begin sailing. The foggy sight of the sealed isle disappears behind the horizon as you leave, leaving you with nothing but endless ocean in every direction. And thankfully the weather is agreeable at this point. It's a nice clear sky, but the winds are high, so you're making some decent pace on your journey back home. As a quiet
Would it be possible for me to like practice charting and coursing through the stars coming out?
Yeah,
Or is
absolutely.
it too early for that already?
It's a bit early for it now, but you can do it later if you wish to.
Mm-hmm.
I
I want to get that proficiency.
Yeah. Okay. So as the moment winds down, you find Astrid, who is kind of just finding sitting on a stool near the map table and just kind of reading a book. And as you come in, she looks up and says, "Oh, hello. How are you doing today?"
Am I feeling better physically after leaving the island?
You feel more at ease, but the potential exhaustion that you might have had from not sleeping the night previous has not exactly done you any favors. So maybe you feel a bit haggard still, but at the very least you're not on edge constantly. Like the energy you got from possibly being on edge all the time has gone away, and now you've kind of got that unpleasant sort of I should probably go to bed sort of feeling to you.
Fair enough. I shrug a little and look over at Astrid. I'm feeling like the worst is behind me. Let's just say that.
That is good. Truth be told,
Captain say that. Sorry, you got it.
Oh no! It is fine. I had been. I had not exactly been terribly comfortable in such a location. If does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd heard about that. I don't think it's just it was just you. I think everyone had that as well. So
I am not surprised. Logic would dictate that an island surrounded by spiked rocks and angry spirits. No, that is not the wisest holiday destination.
does not seem a place suitable for mortals.
But we are away from it now, so I am
Indeed.
looking forward to a restful night.
So am I actually. The sleep on the island was not particularly great. I glance over to see what kind of book she's reading.
It's mostly just a novelization. It's not. It's one of the. This is a book you've heard of before. It's mostly. It's mostly kind of one of those slice of life comedy tales of the trials and tribulations of a young entrepreneur who is doing their best to open some kind of shop in a very busy city, and ultimately hijinks ensue, as it were. It is entitled "The Price of Comfort," which admittedly is a rather dour title, but otherwise the story itself is more comedic in nature. You may have, if you've read it or you've heard of it from passing, the general impression is, it's all right.
Fair enough. I look over. Is it any good?
Well, it is a fine distraction, I suppose. But truth be told, I have.
Fulfills its purpose.
Yes. It does fulfill a purpose to some extent, but honestly, I am more intrigued by horror, so to speak. One would think that I would be rather comfortable and intrigued by the island that we have just left, but, well, the scary things should stay in the mind, no?
I think I understand what you're going for. Yes. More of a sprawling epic kind of person.
You do have the countenance of someone who does enjoy such novels. Do you have any recommendations?
Let's see. Truth be told, I haven't been reading these last few months. There is one book I read when I was a few years younger. This princess going off on an adventure of her own, meeting with Gorons and Zora, Deku Scrubs, and what was the title? There's this this land outside of Hyrule. I don't know if it really exists, but I can't come up with a name. But I'll get back to you on that. It's a good read.
Oh, okay. Well, I look forward to it. I'm sure that by the time that we return, I will be in need of some new reading material. I have a feeling that I will be needing to reread this one a couple of times.
Let's hope you don't have to reread it too often.
Oh, yes.
Gremlin in me wants to suggest for Astrid to go ask Max to borrow a book.
Ooh.
Never. Matsu starts hugging the haversack and he has no idea why.
Glancing around for perceived and not perceived threats.
But it's my books. It's mine.
Thesaurus.
But yeah. So Asher says, is there anything that I can do to help at all?
Not particularly. I was just going to do some
Have you actually given her
calculations.
the company stuff yet?
Because I'm going to look for Hikan to do so.
Okay.
Oh, I was under the assumption that Hikan was sitting there, like, kind of twiddling his thumbs while you guys were talking about books, because books are for nerds.
Wow.
I love reading, so it's calling myself out on that one.
Renji had completely lost himself in that conversation, and he's about to turn away to go.
And he sees the car just sitting there like, fuck.
Right. Actually, Astrid, there's another thing.
Oh.
We got some notes of Donatash's.
Oh. So he made it to the island.
It seems that way. I start to place them on a table. I glance over at Hikan to bring to the table what he had found as well.
Hikan pulls out Daniel's rapier hilt and sets it down. Says, I found this with what looked to be 2 bodies, and there was a Gerudo. There was something that fought like Gerudo that we had to face before we got there, so I don't know what happened to him, but it didn't look good.
Well, admittedly, it is not surprising, to say the least. I mean, I would have assumed that most, if not all of them, were dead by now. They did leave for here roughly 200 years ago. But I mean, it does not give me comfort to know that they might not have had a pleasant end, so to speak. I do not know if Donotash has escaped this fate. She's as she's saying this, she's kind of looking over the notes that you provided. He says, but this is his handwriting, this is his penmanship, his syntax, his everything. I will at the very least have something to go back to Zor's domain for, and inform them of the development. Still, truthfully, they were simply an adventuring company. It would just so happened to be that Donotash was the court wizard The only issue was that he was, stuck up. Very kind of, very strict, very proper. But the king at the time, he was enamored with stories of adventure in his old age, and when the Hylian noble, the dashing Daniel, had arrived looking for companions for a variety of adventures, well, Donatash's services were kind of volunteered on his behalf. They had acquired other members of their little party, all conveniently with the first letter D in their names. The aggressive and short-tempered Dalek, the stoic and silent Dana, and the who was the Egrudo. She was a paladin, though I have no recollection over exactly which deity she aspired to set the ideals of. Perhaps she did not have one and simply swore an oath to something else. Memory escapes me of the last member, but there was at least one more. They went on a number of adventures, of course, and this one was to be the last one. They had simply been going around for their own reasons, and this was the last one they would have before they would part ways and simply retire, either on the money that they had acquired or just finding some different occupation, having had their fill. And a uncharted island in the middle of the ocean with ancient, untold treasures and dangers. That was something that was alluring. And of course, as far as we knew up until this point, they were never heard from again.
I wonder what they were looking for.
Astrid shrugs, says, could have been anything, truthfully. I suppose Donatash went along because it was an obligation. He was not allowed back into the court until there was a time in which the king would be happy for him to return. Daniel was looking for a good story. Dalek was no doubt looking for a good fight. And no one knew what Dana was looking for. In fact, it is from what other characterizations that I have of this paladin, she, nothing, she was difficult to read. Some would assume that there was really nothing in the bulky armor that she wore, but she just accepted to go along with them, and that is it. There was no dissuading her from doing otherwise.
Sadly, that is sometimes the case.
Still, I thank you for the acquisition of these notes and the knowledge of potentially what happened to them. I do not know what dangers were there, and I do not know if they were still there when you faced whatever it was on the island, but in any case, thank you. You have certainly made this journey far more fulfilling than I was expecting.
Hikan bows his head respectfully.
Renji does the same.
Yeah.
Hikan turns to leave. He says in Sheikah to Renji, do you think Dalek probably broke the green orb?
Range is trying hard not to chuckle.
Yeah.
Very possible. I say back.
So, the day continues on, and honestly, when it comes down to it, a good portion of the journey is relatively peaceful. There's nothing untoward that happens to you on the oceans for a couple of days, at the very least, as you begin sailing back. The weather changes occasionally, but not too drastically. Thankfully, by the time you get to here, you don't see any other fog banks that you have to navigate through. Seems like this path was something of a godsend. But yeah, over the next 4 days, where you'll get to about here, I would say, what's everybody been doing to pass the time mostly?
Navigational college.
Navigational college, okay.
But also, I've probably someone may have caught me doing some making some drawings, holding that mural, the piece of paper that I had on the mural, and sketching out some faces of the enemy commanders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those sketches, portraits, might look awfully close. It might resemble Cassandra Summerborn a little too much.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what Renji's been up to.
Okay.
Depending on, other PCs, if you want to do something with that just do something about it.
Okay.
Hikan wakes up in the mornings, starts the stuff for the meals.
Mhm.
While that's kind of finishing getting prepared, he goes and he grabs Renji. They spar for about an hour. He makes food. He serves the food. After breakfast, he goes through the Book of Mudora, specifically looking at some of the rituals, and if they involve motions or movements, he practices those daily as well, just kind of like the movements of them.
Yeah.
He checks on the crew periodically, just to see how they're doing. Especially, I believe it's Pine that's in the crow's nest that doesn't like to be social.
Mm-hmm.
And then, given the trip there, Max was kind of quiet. He does just briefly check in on Max on occasion, making sure that Max is feeling more comfortable at this moment.
Max is still mostly hiding from everyone. He has been keeping his eyes hidden from the crew as well. Still. And what Max has been doing to pass the time is he's making more attempts to control his magic. He feels a bit more comfortable doing that on the boat now that he's had that one success.
Yeah. Okay, and Zayden?
Zayden would be doing his role medical treatments for anybody who needs it, as well as probably spending his spare time examining the orbs and expanding on his notes.
Okay.
Renji would probably sit in every so often with Zayden to check those orbs, because they be big boys.
Okay.
Hikan does pen a letter while on the ship, periodically trying to figure it out, to give to a postman when they get to Sarkosa, to run to his master to be like, "Hey, I found one!"
Nice. But yeah, you go through your daily routines. Morale is kept high thanks to Hikan's cooking. People know well enough to kind of, not for the sake of people are deathly afraid of Max, but they know that
He is
like,
a very intimidating presence in general.
yeah, it's like we're stuck on a boat for a couple of weeks with this guy, and if he wants to be left alone, then to make the experience more bearable for everybody, we'll leave him alone. It's just like it yeah. But with that kind of calmness to it, and as you kind of get used to the whole being on a long voyage thing, the repeated attempts to try and control your magic yield some level of success. You're slowly and surely, quietly gaining that confidence to continue using your abilities. With Renji, you do get a couple of looks from other members of the crew, but since none of them really have the context for Cassandra Sunborn, like, they've clearly heard about massive treasonous traitor Cassandra Sunborn, formerly of the Court of Hyrule, but they don't know enough what she looks like in order to really kind of clock on and say, that's a traitor, you okay, sort of thing.
Fair.
And Zayden, you're finding that, like, as you compare your notes from the vision that you had with the ones that you're making now, and just kind of like looking over these orbs, there's an aspect of, yeah, there definitely needs to be all 6, and now you are short 2. So if this is going to work, like, you don't even know whether or not there's any kind of accompanying spell to go with it, but that can be an adventure for another time, as you kind of like get more familiar with the orbs in question. And so
DM, how many days are we currently from the Sealed Isle?
You are coming up on your 5th day.
Renji will have used the Sending Stone to his dad 4 times. He would have forgotten the first day.
Okay. Each of those 4 times there is no response.
Right. But we had a second set for our own personal use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but no one directly to Castletown.
No one directly to Castletown.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. And so another day kind of comes and goes. And you all go to bed for the night. And as you sleep, I would like everybody to make me a Constitution saving throw.
Oof. Okay. Yes, that's a good question, actually. Why?
And 16.
Ow! Oh no!
Rip Renji.
8.
Rip Renji.
6 plus 2. Oh no.
Okay. So, as you all rest for the night, you go to sleep. There's a measure of discomfort in the night, briefly. But you kind of shrug it off and eventually go back to sleep. When you wake up the next day, you may feel a little bit groggy, kind of like you've got this kind of like, kind of a head cold, but none of the mucus. Renji, you have gained 1 level of exhaustion.
Okay.
And as you
It's not
kind
fun
of,
or anything.
as you kind of like stagger awake and all of you kind of reconvene, you see another couple of people also don't look terribly well.
Shit.
Notably, as you do a brief stock take, Captain Bainswood looks to be a little ill. Leona looks to be a little ill. Astrid looks to be a little ill. Graham looks to be a little ill. Teeth Stealer looks to be a little ill. And that's it. Everyone else seems to be tired and groggy and uncomfortable, but they are otherwise in completely fine condition.
Have we regained hit points
Yes.
the last few days? Okay.
Yeah, you've had like nearly a week of long rests. It's
Okay.
yeah, so everyone is at peak performance up to this point.
Save for level of exhaustion.
Zidon will do his normal morning ritual of detect poison and disease on everyone.
Okay.
And I will head straight for him when I feel this.
Okay. Zidon, you go through the process of detect poison and disease. You don't seem to find any poison or disease among these people.
Well, that's a bit bad sign.
Yeah,
Zidon
because I'm
will-
not feeling very well.
Renji, you have your magic eyes?
Yeah, hold on. I'll try and open them eldritchly.
Okay. You open your eyes to eldritch magics. As you do so, you see that on certain points of the people who have been exhaustified, like on random parts of their body, you see the dark, roiling, smoky aura of necromancy. Like a small patch.
And it's like smoky,
Yeah.
okay? It's not pixely.
It's not pixely, it is smoky.
Okay. Sidon, I think we've been affected by necromancy of some kind.
From where?
I have no idea. Can I find some sort of pattern where these patches have occurred?
Roll for me investigation.
Why investigation?
Because you're searching through clues. Remember,
Can-
you roll a
can Zidon
disadvantage
help?
because you have your thing. So if Zidon helps, then you've got 8.
Zidon just investigate on his own.
Zidon can investigate on
Okay.
his own, with Renji
Then
pointing
I'll-
things out.
It would have been an 8.
Yeah.
I've got a 10.
Okay. Having a cursory
Does
look
he-
around.
I was like, I got a 10. I was like, would advantage help? No.
No, because he's got a level of exhaustion. All his ability checks are at disadvantage. So.
And can I? No, I wouldn't be able to help Zidon with a 10 and a 10.
As you kind of look around through, like, one thing you note is that there is no like specific part of the body where these patches occur. However, while you are examining them up close, Zidon, you do see quite clearly there is like if you examine Renji. Renji, what kind of sleepwear do you wear?
I'm thinking that Renji generally sleeps in like his regular tunics. Like he will have a couple of sets that he meticulously cleans with prestidigitation. But it's basically like wake up, get dressed, have the day, go to bed in those same clothes. wake up, get changed,
Yeah.
have a new day.
Okay. So I'm guessing that for the most part, the only parts of your body that are generally exposed would be your face, neck, and hands.
Face, neck, hands, feet for sleeping.
Okay. Let's roll a d4 real quick. Do I have a d4? I should do in this tray. There's one.
You should.
Okay.
Lethal, but you should.
Okay. As you're
knees and toes.
As you're examining things, you find that on Renji's body, while you're examining things, on his left foot, there appears to be one of these patches of necromantic energy just across the top of the bridge of it, like right in the middle. You remove his boot, you remove his socks if he hasn't put them on while feeling groggy like this, and you find that with your non-detect magic vision, Zayden, you can see just across the top appears to be a pair of pinpricks, roughly 3 inches in 3 inches apart from each other.
Does it look like a vampire sucked on his foot?
Yes,
3 inches would be a very wide vampire.
I feel even worse now.
Captain Bainswood has one on the back of his hand. Leona has one on the back of her neck. Astrid seems to have one on her left calf. Graham has one on his tail, and Thief Stealer has one on his ear.
Oh, do we think it's some... If it's necromantic magic, can we, in character, make a roll to determine what would bite people and use necromantic magic?
Give me an Arcana check.
13.
Can I help?
You may help.
14.
14.
I can add guidance to this.
Go for it.
Make it a whole 17.
17.
Excellent.
So, there are a number of creatures within the that dwell within the realms of necromancy that could have done this. Of course, there are a variety of different spirits. You haven't known Pose to bite people, though. It could just be some other kind of wayward, ethereal creature. As far as physical things go, the bubbles bite. It's really the only thing they can do, truth be told. They are just a skull that is on fire and flying. There's...
I didn't notice one of them.
Yeah. There are zombies, but you would have noticed a zombie. Re-Dead's more or less the same. They do bite, but they have to scream at you first in order to get that to work. Most Stal or skeletal creatures don't tend to bite, well, of course, with the exception of Bubbles. That's as much as you can gather at the moment. You're cut like in. Sure.
Do those of us who passed the check have the same things?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, upon further examination, every member of the crew seems to have been afflicted with a bite.
Okay.
So that some of them have been afflicted with necromantic magic too.
And Max is panicking.
So this is just guess on what happens, but as Leona's not feeling well, Hikan kind of does the similar thing that he did with Max, checking things when he gets to her neck where the things are. I would like to spend a key point to attempt to cure blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned.
Okay. You apply your healing hands. And as you kind of pull away, you see the bite wound itself seems to seal up, but when conferring with Renji and his magic sight, the necromantic magic remains.
Ah, poop.
At this point in time, you've done enough research to tell that it's probably not some kind of disease or poison, it is probably some kind of curse.
Ah, double poop. That is not great at all. I think we need to set watches specifically for the people who aren't yet affected. I thought I was going to have a good night.
Max is gonna just start doing a thorough examination of the ship to just see if anything's out of place.
Okay. Give me an
He's been all over the place, so he might notice.
Yeah, give me an investigation check.
3,
You say I help.
Yeah, you can help.
please. 14.
So with the 14, you go through much of the ship, like top to bottom, like while everyone else goes about their day to continue sailing and stuff, albeit being a bit cautious considering the state that a lot of people are now in. Bruno does his best to take over on the helm, while Bainswood effectively swaps duties and becomes first mate. You spend your time going through the entire ship, through like everything that's there. You find that in the rowboat, the rowboat itself, being a standard rowboat, has like a little compartment, like a small kind of chest-like area where a lot of stuff is kept. You see something relatively small, about the size of one person's palm, let's say, may have chewed through the wood of that little compartment crate.
We'll point that out. It sounds something. Some guy on the boat.
Can we investigate?
You may. How would you like to investigate?
I would like to look for tracks in the Bible.
Okay.
Because I'm decent at that.
Okay.
18.
I will help.
21.
21. So, you examine, you start where you found the first clue, which was this supply kind of crate thing within the rowboat. You open it up, you find that it is, apart from like a dozen or so scratch marks within inside it, it is relatively empty. What you notice, however, is that it doesn't appear to be some kind of like small mammal, at the very least. Like the way that these scratch marks are presented, it doesn't appear to be like a small trioed set of claws to try and scramble out. It looks to be two very thick-looking prongs. The first thing that comes to mind isn't necessarily a mammal, but some kind of insect. Possibly the pincers of some kind of beetle.
Do the prongs look similar to the marks on people?
Yes.
Okay.
Knowing what you're now looking for, you go through the ship once again. You notice that there are other little pock marks here and there. And it's not until you find yourself within the cook's quarters that you find a small kind of upended box, like a tiny little container, that you kind of like think to yourself, how come I didn't notice this for the first time around? But as you kind of like notice it and suddenly pick up on it, you hear in the you begin to hear from the box.
Ooh.
I think I will ignite aspiration.
That's gonna like lean around to try and get a view of the inside
Okay.
with his gauntlet at the ready.
Let's
And
see.
basically, as soon as he sees anything that looks like movement or like anything that is inside it, he's gonna cast magic missile.
Okay. So you peer around, and after sticking there for a moment, like it's the seconds in which you are waiting are agonizing. But as you kind of like keep an eye and watch, you see something shift inside, and quick as a trigger, all 3 missiles
Damn.
hit this.
11 force damage.
As far as spells go, that is probably the best
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
in this situation.
Like, I don't care what its AC is or whatever, just taking force damage.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
first missile hits this small box, which seems to contain like a portion of like seasoned jerkied meat in it. That explodes. The second
Goodbye,
missile.
box. I hope no one was fond of this box. It's gone now.
It
Yeah.
doesn't hit a box, it hits a creature.
It's taking the box with it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, in the midst of it exploding, of this box exploding with all this jerky and the debris going everywhere, you don't get enough of a good look before the second and third missile hit whatever the fuck this thing is. And there's a now new healthy scorch mark in the wall of this ship. As when the dust settles, you see what appears to be this rough-looking obsidian scarab beetle, now kind of in pieces, just kind of like in a heap on this shelf. It is not moving. You have dealt far more damage than you needed.
Like 10 more.
Yeah, thereabouts. If you consider half damage of the first bolt to be what you needed to take care of the box, the remaining half took care of the beetle.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
DM, did you hope that like we wouldn't be able to hit it since it was so small?
Well, no, I knew Max had magic missile in his arsenal,
Okay.
so yeah, it's just I did have like I was prepared for if you didn't find it for like the next week. I rolled ahead of time for all of the crew for the next 5 days to see how, because by that point you would have found it. But yeah,
Presumably, we're gonna check around. It wasn't just one.
yeah,
Mhm.
Well, now we know what they look like and what sort of things they hide in.
yeah.
But Max
will-
is also gonna cast mending on the wall because
Okay,
doesn't want the owner to be mad at him.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Can you cast mending on the box?
No, the box is dead. I killed it. I killed it very hard. You cannot raise this box.
The box has gone to meet his maker.
The box is now living on a farm.
It's probably
The box is now living on a farm. It's like,
somewhere in Sarkosa.
even if he could, we're not allowing this box to come back because it is complicit in hiding whatever the fuck this thing is.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. The box is guilty of
Fuck this
aiding and abetting a
box.
criminal.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I imagine as everyone's just kind of going down, like after they spread, fixing the things, Hikan comes down like 10 minutes later and looks over and is like, "Hey, who broke the jerky box?"
I will put a hand on Max on Hikam's shoulder and say, "The jerky box was never your friend."
Point at the dead bug. His fault.
I would actually try and investigate the beetle, or like
Okay.
what the hell it is.
Okay. Give me an Arcana check.
I would
Arcana
also
check.
like to
I
do
know.
stuff because I have read some books now.
Yes.
Will you help?
I will roll.
Oh, in that case. What?
Oh, okay.
Ooh,
That is a roll with disadvantage.
double
It is.
25.
Double
Hell yeah.
25. Um,
I rolled a 19 and a 19.
nice.
Yay.
That's great.
That is wonderful.
So you like the two you examine this beetle. Max, you can't really make head nor tail of it initially. Renji, oddly enough, as you examine like the pieces of it and its consistency and everything, you see that it contains no internal organs. Like nothing is spilt out or been cauterized or anything from the concept of this beetle. Weirdly, you look at it and you think it's somehow a necromantic elemental.
Ooh.
Okay.
Could I summon one of these?
No. You have a specific list.
Do I?
It says fire, water, or earth or there, right?
You have a specific
mean,
list
we
you can
can-
change into. It's also less than CR5.
Yeah.
But Condra,
I-
I'll have to
I
confer
can
on
do-
whether Condra Elementals can do that though.
I'm talking this one.
Yeah, Conjure Minor Elementals.
I haven't seen that one
Challenge
before.
rating.
I'm wondering if that works in the same way that Condra Animals does, and I get to choose
My
what elementals
question
turn up.
my question is, do you want to?
I'm saying
Considering
no.
Zaiden's particular feelings towards necromantic stuff
Oh no, he hates skeletons.
that he has shown before.
Hmm.
It's very specific to skeletons.
Hmm. In this case, it is not disappearing. This thing, correct?
It is not disappearing, oddly enough. It's at least sticking around long enough for you to examine it.
Okay. What I'm also curious about is whether or not you said that this was an elemental rather than something like a construct.
In a sense, yeah. It's basically a living
Okay.
form of raw magical power, which could either be, like, by typing wise, either a construct or an elemental. Like, it has the same kind of consistency of what you would expect from a earth elemental or a fire elemental.
Max is gonna scoop up the bits onto like a bit of paper and
Mhm.
carry it to Zaiden. Like, look at this. It might help fix things. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I will follow after, like holding on to the railing.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely certain, like how if this is a summoned thing. That might be. I'm not sure where it exactly comes from. It looks as if it's from it hitched a ride with us, but
As you
I don't yet know.
as you begin examining it, Mara comes in to have a look and see what's up.
It was Mara.
She sees the beetle and is like, "Where did you find that?"
Hiding in
look
the
like it,
jerky box.
look
Hold
like
on.
it snuck on board from the island, maybe.
Like as
I don't
you mention that kind of theory, your eyes go wide a bit. She takes out a book and begins flicking through it rapidly before she kind of stops on a page and says, "Oh boy,
And then Matt's like, "Wait, it didn't get you, did it?"
no, at
Good.
least I don't think so." And she kind of like examines
So
herself.
we'll pick her over.
You check her over very briefly. It appears she has a bite mark on the back of her ankle, but she has no necromantic tag.
Right.
She kind of like looks over the beetle and compares it to something that she has in her book and says, "This is something that I think might be something that I found in the library one time. Not the beetle, but the idea of what it was.
Right.
This is one part of something that's called an umbral fog. Normally, they're part of a swarm, so I guess we should probably check the rest of the ship. But
Okay.
the idea is that they are they're creatures that are kind of connected to a different plane of existence, one that is tied intrinsically to the necromancy school of magic. They drain life force efficiently, and when something is drained constantly, like constantly bitten and stuff, they soon just die after having all of their life essence taken away. And I think after that, they come back as a member of the undead.
That doesn't sound great.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. I wasn't saying it was great. I'm just explaining what it is, so we know what to do if case it happens again. Okay?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not feeling great. I'm a little bit testy.
Go lie
I
down.
apologize. Fine. And he
Go.
just lies down on the floor. I want to know what this is, like why this is a thing. Umbral fog. Okay. There's multiple things, probably. Deep sigh. Are they summoned? Are they naturally occurring? You said they are part of like this other plane?
That's all the information I had from the library. I don't know fully what these things are from, what they do, why they're here. All I know is that they exist. All I know is what the general mechanical overview of what they are. But if it's a stowaway from the island, that means that that's probably a bunch of that's probably got some kind of ties to whatever this thing that's escaped has.
Possibly.
It's a cult. We were here because of a cult that worships death. It makes sense. And then there was all the undead on the island.
Max is gonna go rally up basically anyone who isn't doing anything right now to help.
Yeah.
I have an idea to help with that.
Do an extra big super check to make sure that none of them are still around.
So Hikan's idea is, okay, so you guys said that it made a rattling noise, right? So then Hikan's
No,
gonna thwack.
that was just it touching the box.
So Hikan's gonna thwack every box and then wait. See if there's a noise.
That's what I do when I lose track of a spider or something in the general area. I just kind of nudge boxes and shove things to see whether or not it spooks them out into the open, so I can like capture them and put them outside.
I just wait until they phase back into reality. Blink's gotta wear off sooner or later, spiders.
Would if with this happening, would Renji and Mara like have a moment to talk?
Well, Max
By themselves?
is leaving to rally up people, and I guess
Ah.
Hikan's going with to hit boxes. So
Mara hasn't been afflicted either, so she's going to help with the deep clean.
I will try and stop her for a moment to talk. Look, about just now, I'm not feeling right, and I apologize. I shouldn't have be snappy. Your knowledge about this sort of thing is incredibly valuable, and
Well-
I don't want to give you the impression that I think that I would think less of you because of you knowing about this sort of stuff.
Well, I thank you for your apology. But, you can understand why it's not a pleasant association, you know? It's not
No, it isn't.
it's not exactly fair to say that someone is to imply that someone finds this sort of horrid thing exciting or interesting. I'm frightened too, and I got a full night's rest. We're all scared. And I guess I can excuse you in some way because you're tired and you're sick because of whatever this thing is. But just know that there are not everyone deals with this sort of information well. And however they deal with it in their own way.
He actually looks quite sullen, being spoken to this way. This is going to sound very odd. Could Mara make an insight check?
Sure. Well, that's a natural 19.
Fair enough. She might get the impression that what he said to her as an apology is something that Renji would personally like to hear. That it's not so much the kind of knowledge that someone should be judged for to know.
She kind of pauses a moment. Says, "Look, I need to help look over the ship, but what I will say is this. I don't know what is going on between you and your dad."
He looks quite hurt when she says that.
But
Yeah.
what I do know is that quite possibly the reason why he's so upset at you might be the fact that he's afraid of whatever dangerous thing that you might be doing. And that's not necessarily what it is that you've tied yourself to. I mean, look at us. We're on a ship sailing away from an island of nothing but death and decay, looking for any of these other bugs that might be trying to drain our souls. Contract with some kind of otherworldly being or not. That's nuts. That's messed up. But
Yeah.
he's... I don't doubt that Nihilus wants the best for you. but it might take him some time.
That Renji just looks up. This expression of worry on his face. I haven't heard from him for a week now. I keep sending him messages. There's no response. I know that we're going back to Sarkosa and then to Hyrule Castletown, but I need to know what's happened. I need to know what's going on. Crying doesn't work either, apparently. So that means he's like in a different place.
She kind of pauses a moment and then thinks and nods a bit and says, if that's the case, then from what I understand, in this whole affair, we have done our job. We've gone to the island, we've found out more information than we probably could have bargained for in regards to this cult thing. We have enough to report back. But we can't continue in any other direction until we know what's happening with your father. So I don't think it's out of the question if we suggest it to King Marius that we go and find Nihilus.
That feels so odd to say, doesn't it?
She kind of like narrows her eyes slightly at the sudden change in tone, but it's like, right. But the point is, we will find your dad. You'll be able to, I can guarantee you will be able to sit down with him, you'll have a talk, because I feel like in both instances, since this whole thing came to light, you haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to him about it, and he hasn't had a chance to sit down and talk to you about it. There's a lot of information, I bet, that neither of you are aware of. Just talking to each other is so underrated.
I wanted to. I wanted to so badly when we were about to leave Castletown for Sarkosa. It wasn't even a word that he said to me that wasn't business.
Well, remember, it's not just, it's going to sound so callous, it's not just what's happening with you that's on his mind as well. Remember, Princess Sophia is still missing, and that is basically his entire career and job and a significant portion of his life.
I know she's almost my sister.
She might
that
be
way.
She might be a princess of Hyrule. She might be a bloodline descendant of the goddess Hylia, but she's also a 14-year-old girl by herself in a place that we now know is more dangerous than we could possibly imagine.
I know. And that, coupled with the fact that I haven't heard from Nihilus in so long, I fear the worst for both of them.
Well,
And you saying that I will have that talk, I sincerely hope so.
Mara kind of Mara nods and says, We'll find him. But for now, you need to get some rest. And I need to help the others try and find any more of these things that have crawled on board.
Aye, aye.
Priority 1 is getting back to Sarkosa.
Whilst they are starting to look for stuff, Renji is going to try and find a hammock.
Okay. You do find a spare hammock. And after some of the crew have like swept through and everything, like the
Max comes through ripping up floorboards with his gauntlet. Just searching literally everywhere.
yeah.
Max, I have an idea. And Hikan's flipping the Quake medallion in his hand.
No.
No.
I don't know.
Says no.
I don't know what that does, but no.
But yeah, after you do that, everyone begins hunting through the ship, and we will call it there for the evening. Thank you everybody for listening in or watching. I apologize if the stream had stuttered a couple of times. Those who might have been watching the stream, new internet, you know how it goes. I have been Articulate T. This has been episode 76 of Hyrule Chronicles, and with me, as always, I have had Renji Vox being played by the Netherlad.
The issues part 2 or 3 or 4. I have lost counts.
I have had Hikan Sio being played by Avrdal.
Bye-bye.
I have had Zayden Shari being played by Rubber Pirate.
Goodbye.
I have Max being played by Keistruth.
I mean, it's pretty easy to find out which part it is. Just check the number of episodes.
Ouch.
True.
True, but ouch.
We'll see you guys next time. You guys take care. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.